This quick video response is to the responses I got about the email that I sent out about um, reflecting where you actively want to be participating when it comes to strategic planning and whether you just want to be informed or not be involved in a specific area. First of all, I think it's important that I give you a bit of background about my changing situation and why this suddenly shows up as an issue for me personally. The idea is not to speak to the whole of SOAS. In other words, well, we should include leadership and staff and so that's 100% assumed. The issue within the faculty realm is if I were to ask myself, okay, let's take some of you, Maria, are you involved with the MLIS or not? I cannot authoritatively answer that. And so I would have to kind of guess. Well, I know she's involved in the BSIST and the MSIST, but is she involved in the MLIS? And so because we've not reflected that to each other, we can often have a miss in our communication. So if I assume you are involved and you feel, why are you bothering me with this? That's just not where my focus is. My focus is on the other side of the house. Likewise, if I assume you're not involved and you wish you were included, that's all this is about. And the background to this is as follows. With my new role as doing outreach and recruitment and brand building and so forth in the Intermountain West, I will definitely have an interesting situation where we will have to dynamically respond sometimes. Now, so if I ask myself right now, okay, when it comes to the MLIS, let's say there's some awareness that I develop by being in the field in many of these Western states, and I want to see how well we do in certain areas, because let's say the library directors in those areas indicate there's really some key things that they would like us to teach in a master's program. So for me to engage my colleagues to see, number one, do we address it? And if we do, who's addressing it and how, and what information can I provide to them to make sure that the region in which I'm working is well addressed and that there is some customization in what we offer. For example, New York City and Laramie, Wyoming, it's not the same context. And to be informed about the context and to address that specifically, and for me to be able to provide information and context to the appropriate people is really essential. From the outset, I've realized that this thing I'm doing is not me, it is us. And I will desperately need a lot of participation and involvement from everybody. And it's both ways. So it's a unique role that I'm taking on, but it's a team effort all the way. And my dilemma right now is, if I ask myself, who are the faculty that are directly involved with it? As far as the advisors and so forth and the deans and so forth, that's clear and that's easy to understand. But when it comes to faculty, I cannot authoritatively answer that. And it's obviously a point of contention if you assume something that's inaccurate. So simply put, then, invite every faculty member to express where their focus and interest lies. And then the communication is open and clear. You know who to approach when there are questions and who's really related to it. Why I feel the program committee is not the ideal spot for this often is because it changes all the time. You might remember I was on the MLIS committee and Shauna and I steered the process as co-chairs when we developed our new masters in the MSIST. Right after that, I was moved off to another committee. So my participation in that was gone. I was not informed, I was not told, I was not invited, I was not asked, not whether I should be or not. That's the reality. And then later on, I come back on, and those who were on before me, then they're off, and I don't feel, oh, I should include them. It's an ad hoc thing. You deal with it as you serve in that capacity. So for ad hoc stuff, that works. But for that long-term planning, that's a real problem. The analogy I use is, if your neighbor is going away for 6 months and asks you to look after their house, and you do a good job, what does that mean? That simply means there were no water leaks, the lawn was kept in place, the place was clean, you know, things were maintained and kept in place so that you could hand over a well-kept place to the owner upon return. Now, that is very much how our program committees operate. But as the neighbor now looking after this home, I wouldn't walk in there and look at the dining room and living room and say, you know what, I think an open floor plan would be much better, and start breaking out walls and strategically reshape this place to update it with today's design trends. And no, I wouldn't go there. So where does that happen? Within our programs. And much of this now will be necessary we need to be responsive to this kind of stuff as we move ahead. And so if we go directly to the program committee, then all those who want to be involved and are involved are often serving in other committees are then excluded by default. So it's great to know who the people are around the campfire, or the specific campfire, that you never offend anybody in this respect. So since I'm speaking about my role out west, I think it's maybe a great opportunity to share with you the focal areas that I will have. I will visit community colleges and work with them to see, once they finish their associates, if they want to transfer into our BSIST and complete their bachelor's with us. So in that sense, having that connect with those involved and so forth is very helpful to make sure that that process happens well, that we understand how their experience is, and that we can serve them well. And my presence in the field, in the area, hopefully will make a difference with them feeling we take ownership and we focus in the area and we care about the people that we're amongst here, and that we really want to serve them optimally. So that's the one area, is community colleges. The other area is I will visit graduate institutions and look at their programs, because none of these states have a Masters of Library and Information Science. So now moving to the MLIS program, and work with them to see if we can work out a coordinated degree. We discovered that the language at UWM was developed in the 1980s. And that's before the concept of online education, of course. And so it was very myopically set on campus. So I'm working with Dev and others right now to see if we can get the graduate committee on this to adjust the language so that programs outside of UWM could equally well be slotted into this, so that our opportunity to work with graduate programs at other institutions are equally well served, so that we will get students from these programs. And then, so we know in these programs it works well with English, history, and of course music sometimes. Geography is also a very important one, and even at UWM we really need to look at that. There's a real need for people in that field with librarianship and with GIS experience, and creating that combination is really essential. So there's some really good opportunities there. We need to kind of clear the path, you know, in red tape, so that we can facilitate that and make that work well. Then the final and third part, where that will really be important, will be that I will focus on public and academic libraries. I will visit these libraries. I will engage the library directors. And the key things that we'll do there, now you'll see how the strategic piece of this will work well, is that I will reach out to them and say, we would like to be your research partner. Many libraries would like to do some research, whether it's to understand their patrons better, their reach, their services. You know, I'm going to leave it up to them to identify where they'd like to do some research. Then we can look for some federal grant money to really form a fantastic collaboration with these people to do research. I'm excited about that, because I feel if we succeed well in partnering with them and doing research, and this goes well, of course, the word will spread, and our interaction with them and how we serve them through research will be very much treasured and valued. And thus our branding immediately goes up, our recognition is established, and the interest in what we do and offer is also enhanced. In my 2 previous visits out west, that was Nevada, Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming, I found people did not know about us. We were not on their radar. And in passing, one director said to me as I was leaving, "So you guys have an online program too?" Well, that said everything I needed to know. We've got work to do. And so in that sense, the idea here is as we engage with public library directors and we work with them, is another question I typically ask them is saying, so if one of your staff goes out to do a master's, what would you like that person to return with that's different to serve your needs? That question has been very interesting, and I've touched on that topic with some of you already. But see, this is where we need to be responsive. So if they all have a specific need, and it's obviously abundantly clear that they have need X and Y, and let's say we do not address it well, then we need to be responsive to adjust our offerings. I can think in the future of looking at what we offer and lay it before the public library directors and say, this is what we offer, just to get their opinions. And if you do that library director after library director, and you get a very consistent pattern, isn't that wonderful for us to guide us to know, okay, for public librarianship, this is where we go. And then, to sell what we do offer to them. All of that goes together. But I hope you can see in this the dynamics of, I feel a weakness with our school at the moment, and this is a very honest reflection, is we're very insular. And I don't mean between SOAS and the others. I mean from me to you, between each other. When you look at our teaching, every teacher is an island. Nobody engages with you about how you teach and what you teach. And normally there is a sense of back off, leave me alone, I do my own thing. I'm a big boy now, I can figure it out myself, thank you. There's a bit of that feel. And so it's difficult for us to build a cohesiveness. And when I worked and discussed this with nursing, for example, with their program, I found that they're very collaborative. They're really open and eager to learn from each other. And if somebody has mastered something really great, they're eager to share it with their colleagues for engagement. So I'm hoping that we can connect well so that we can reflect well so that we can have that benefit of adjusting well to the future. I feel personally that as we look over the last 10 years, yes, it's true that we've been through many challenging times and changes and so forth, and that has not served us well to get where we want to be. But I think we have to look at our collegial culture, the culture from me to you and from you to all your other colleagues as we all collaborate. Is that really open and do we have a sense of moving, collectively moving towards a strategic future that we are all share? I don't think we have that. I honestly don't. I see we kind of do more of an ad hoc addressing of needs, but we haven't built that. And of course, there is the issue of we used to have a director of programs, and that person then kind of had that charge to bring people together and to drive that. And once that disappeared, well, then it left it to the program committees. And as I mentioned in my analogy, it is like looking after your neighbor's house while they're gone. You maintain things, but we lost that permanency of and that vision of thinking, well, who's in charge of our strategic thinking? Well, that's a good question. Now, obviously, when it comes to school-wide, yes, then it goes to the office of the dean. But often within a program, we need to develop that because that is what a dean needs. A dean can't develop a strategic thinking for every program. And so we need to be geared to do this well. So I gave you a long-winded response here, but I'm hoping this is helpful. And I really hope, I'm going to conclude with this, that I hope that what I'm doing here will be what I call version 2.0 for online education. As I've been in the field and working in this, I've realized something really, wow, I can't believe it never hit me before. So I'll take you back to the 1980s. Face-to-face is the only thing. So how does that mindset work? Well, there's some brilliant people around that live around the campus, that interact and do their research and teach and so forth. So they create a branding of you want to go there because at that place great things happen and so forth. So that's how face-to-face works, and that's why you go to a Harvard, because of the branding that they have. Brilliant professors and lots of money and research and great things happen there. You want to be there. That's a promising place, and everything known about it. So when online education came around, now I'm going to talk about version 1.0. All the affordances of online education is now obviously immediately exploited, and we say now anybody from anywhere in the world can join us and have this great experience. Obviously, it's different. You don't have that same richness of experience sometimes with people, that bubbler talk, as we say here, and so forth. Yet you do get great education. Now, the problem with that version and that model is, if I were to ask you, so who are we focusing on? Who are we targeting as we think of online education? The most common answer would be anybody, because it's accessible to everybody. Why would we not? But that anybody and everybody is also then, well, nobody in particular. In other words, here's the weakness. If you're in math, maybe that's okay, because 2 plus 2 equals 4, and your ability to figure out what a 2 plus 2 is all what it's about, and whether you live in Greenland or in the Malvinas, it's the same thing. You've got to know this. But when it comes to library and information science, context matters a lot. Whether you live in Brooklyn, New York, or whether you live in Laramie, Wyoming, not the same thing. And for us to be informed about their needs and their realities makes a big difference. Makes people feel, I belong here. This is where I should be. These people understand my reality. They've reflected and thought about where I am. And so their skills about the discipline is applied to my context. And how do we achieve that best? Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if one of us is right there and gets that information and freely shares that information, so that we can all be empowered to be contextualized to our students in these custom areas. So if we have a target area and we are embedded in that area, we are there as well, not just here. And so that's the difference from version 1.0 to version 2.0. We're actually there, and that difference makes us different. That's how our branding really stands out. Emporia State has done some of this, and that's a topic for another day, but they have really led the way, and their influence is widely felt throughout the Intermountain West. And it's time for us to take on a different thing and not just do we're a well-known university, the brand name of the University of Wisconsin, enough should do it. Those days are over. It's time for us to really engage and connect with them. That's the spiel. Thank you very much.